Hi, and welcome into Balls in the Air. I'm your friendly neighborhood host, Charlie Romer. Got a really special show coming for you today. As always, we're attached to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, the golf capital of the world. And we got a couple of superintendents that are joining the show today. One of them is retired, Bob Ranum. And Bob, drum roll please, is the Long Island legend. And what an amazing nickname he has. Great story, really good friend. And also Jim Huntoon, who is still active. Jim's much younger than Bob. And
everybody is.
Yeah, exactly. And Jim is at Heritage down in Pawleys Island, the south end of Myrtle Beach. And I think Heritage is the best kept secret in all of Myrtle Beach. But thrilled that you guys would come in and hang out. You know, these superintendents are so arrogant. It's difficult to get them to come and hang out, you know, with a PGA professional like me, because they look down on us so much. They don't think we, you know, do very much. We just fold sweaters and stuff like that. Well, they do the real work in the world of golf. But guys, we appreciate you joining. And you know, I'd like to maybe start with this. Both of them called about 3 days ago. They want me to give them a preview of what I was going to ask them. I said, no preview. I can't believe you think I would give you a preview. I should have given you.
We were friends. I thought you would do that.
Oh, well, it's a lot more fun messing with you. You don't need it.
We were member, and the member.
Right. We finished last in the ninth flight. And most people think it's because of him, not me, because I'm the pro. But he actually played better than I did. So
and we weren't last. We were second to last.
But anyway, let's talk a little background. And Bob, I'll start with you.
Okay.
You two big jobs. You were Garden City, and then you finished up last 30 years of your career, right at 30 years at Atlantic up on Long Island, Reese Jones Golf Course. But let's just talk. Let's get back to the beginning. When did you decide that you were going to be a superintendent? How'd you go about that?
Well, that's pretty interesting. When I was in high school, you'll like this story. So I was in high school. I met a girl, my wife now after 43 years, and we started dating. And one day she said to me, she goes, "Would you like to go work for my father?" I said, "What does he do?" And he goes, "He's a golf course superintendent on Long Island at Rockville Links." I didn't even know what a golf course was back there. We were 15 years old. So she went back to her dad and said, "Daddy, would you give my new boyfriend a job?" And he said, "Yeah, I'll give him a job." So he picks me up. I remember like it was yesterday. It's so weird. And he picks me up at my house. We lived down the block from each other. We're only a block away. And I went to work that day. And like anything else I worked, I had a great time. And I got home, and we used to meet at the railroad station in between both of us. So after work, we ran up, and she says, "What you think?" And I said, "I'll tell you right now, I will never do anything again in my life." From that moment on, my first day of work at Rockville Links, I knew that's my love. Wow. I never did anything else. So I worked for him for a year or two, then I obviously went to UMass. And then after that, you know, I got my first head job at Garden City Golf Club, which was an amazing thing because I was 23 years old, top 50 club in the country, one of the most respected golf courses in the country. And I was lucky enough to be there for 13 years. And then I moved on to build, grow in Atlantic Golf Club on the east end of Long Island, where I spent my last 30 years.
So before I get to Jim, you that first day, you're working for Allison's Day, you said you loved it. What did you love about it?
And it's really weird, I did love being outside. I loved the whole golf course. But what really intrigued me was the equipment part of it. So we were in the maintenance building just to see equipment that I've never seen before. Hand greens, mowers, triplexes, sprayers. And I was intrigued on all the equipment. I just couldn't get enough thinking, man, you got this great little maintenance building. You got all this equipment you can screw around with. You don't have customers yelling at you to fix anything. So I really drew me in was the equipment aspect of it. Mm-hmm. And then as I grew on the golf course, I realized I loved everything about it, from the game to the maintenance and I think the challenge, and Jim will say this, the challenge of trying to get a golf course, we never think a golf course is perfect. It's never going to happen in our eyes, even though you might play and say, this place is great. But it's the challenge of trying to get there. It's the challenge of satisfying yourself, not somebody else. I remember always driving around the golf course, and a member would come to me and say, "Bobby, the place is great." And I would say, "Well, did you see over here? It just isn't right." Because we always want, golf course superintendents love perfection. And real quick, a little side note, since I've retired, I'm doing work for Golf
You're
Magazine.
retired?
Yeah, had a party too.
He had this huge party at Atlantic, and I didn't show up, and he's never going to let me forget about it.
So going around. So this year for Golf Magazine, I went to 40 golf courses I've never seen before. And what I find more, besides just the architectural value of the golf course, is just spending time with the golf course superintendents. Every superintendent is so enthusiastic about their piece of property. They just can't wait to show you everything about it, what they want to do, what they have done, the plans they have, the architectural values. So I had so much fun just spending a day with the superintendent. So my average day would be I'd get there at 6 o'clock for the superintendent. I'd spend the morning with him. Then I'd play in the afternoon to really get the value of the whole golf course. So that was a real fun thing that I've been doing.
We'll save a little bit of that for later, because I want to dive into that and what you're doing for Golf Magazine now. But first, Jim, how did you first fall in love with this golf business? Because the golf business, you got to be in love with it to do it, no matter whether you're on my side or your side. But where did you first fall in love with golf?
When I was a teenager, my grandfather taught me to play, and I picked up on it really quick and enjoyed it and kind of immersed myself in the game then. And you do have to have a love for it, Charlie, and I still do. And I just kind of was not originally thinking about going into the golf business, but once I got through college the first time and got out and graduated, realized I had to work for a living. I decided it might be time to...
Wait, I'm 53. I hadn't figured that out yet.
Well, you're doing well. But I just kind of went back to golf and kind of said, this might be a way to enjoy what you do and have a career at the same time.
So you fell in love with it, decided you want to get into it. And how did that transition to this really excellent career that you've had so far? You got plenty more in front of you as a golf course superintendent. Did you go intern? Did you work on a crew? Tell me a little bit about your education.
Yeah, well, this is kind of how I got down to Myrtle Beach. I'm originally from the Midwest, and I graduated from Iowa State University with a degree in community and regional planning. And like I said, I figured out pretty quickly I didn't want to do that. So I immediately started working on the grounds crew at a local country club there, Ames Golf and Country Club, and Iowa State's a big turf school, so there was a lot of turf guys that were working there, students, and kind of just hanging around them. I just felt like this might be something that I want to do, and I just graduated with a bachelor's and wanted to go to a 2-year school, and kind of looked around and found out about Horry Georgetown here in Conway. And at the time I was 24, my wife was 24, and we were living in Ames, Iowa in the middle of the winter. And
that's not much fun.
Myrtle Beach sounded like a good place to move to, Charlie. It really did. And so we moved down here in 99, and the rest is history. Been here since, and I've worked for 11 years at Caledonia through school as an assistant superintendent. I did do a stint at Pinehurst for an internship, but just Caledonia and Heritage are really the only two golf courses that I've been at, right next to each other. So.
And two good ones to be at.
I
noticed while you were talking, Bob was looking down at his phone there. He's got a great excuse because the grandbaby is on the way as we speak. And, of course, Bob would be there up on Long Island, but with COVID, it's difficult to travel and all that right now. So you get a couple texts coming in. You're excused. Okay. So pretty neat stuff right now for Bob. But tell me a little bit about your education.
Well, when I worked for Gene, Allison's father, and I realized that I wanted to go. So at the time when I was going, I graduated high school in '73. So we were looking around at the best colleges, and back then UMass was by far the #1 turf school anywhere around. So it was like a no-brainer that I would go up there. So I went up there, and took me 5 years to get out of a 4-year program. But
I can relate to that.
That's pretty normal. And I was, and I just loved it. I mean, I would come back every summer, obviously, and work on different golf courses. What I tried to do, which I think was interesting for me, was every summer I came back home, I worked for a different superintendent on Long Island. So I went to Piping Rock 1 year. I went to actually Garden City Golf Club where I became the superintendent, and I did Cherry Valley 1 year, just so I could see different ways superintendents manage their crew, manage their golf courses. I thought I wanted to get as much possible I could. And then when I graduated, Garden City Golf Club the superintendent from there was moving up to Piping Rock, Mel Lucas, and I just said, I'm also just interviewed. I know the place, and I interviewed. I was a young kid, 23 years old, interviewed against all these big superintendents. And I remember, again, like it was yesterday, they said to me on the third interview, Bob, we're going to give you a chance. We're going to let you be the superintendent here for 1 year. And if it's a complete disaster, we'll make it, we'll go away. Well, my first year was a complete disaster. I killed every blade of grass I could find. I was killing the neighbors' yards. And then at the end, I think, this isn't going to be good. And then he came to me and said, listen, you didn't do a great job, but I got to tell you, you worked around the clock. We see the progress you're going to do. We understand there was a lot of thatch on the golf course, and you're trying to eliminate it. So they said, keep going. And I said 13 years at the Garden City Golf Club, which was a great experience for me, because being a young superintendent, I didn't really know playing conditions as much as growing grass. And that membership, being 100 members, less than 10 handicap there, they taught me what a condition should be. Firm, fast. Don't worry about green grass. Worry about playability. So we really set the tone for my career in playability, which I think most of my career I went after.
Let me ask you to jump in, Jim. So many times in golf, we hear these terms, and we sort of assume everybody knows what it means. You know, a lot of times if I'm doing a live event, well, that player caught a flyer. Well, some people know what a flyer is, some people don't. Everybody acts like they know what it is. They don't really. He mentioned the term thatch. Just in layman's term, you know, what is thatch, and why is it so important to not have so much of it on a golf course?
It's the decaying plant material as the grass grows and ages, and it's the underground parts of the turf grass plants, the rhizomes and the stolons. Those aren't really layman's terms, but that's what we call them. They're underground stems.
I know those are parts of plants. Yeah.
And that all stuff over time breaks down, and it creates a spongy layer between the soil and the turf surface, and it affects the playability of the golf, or of the turf and of the golf course. It affects the overall health of the turf. You know, the more thatch you have, the harder it is to get water and fertilizer and chemicals to where you need them. And it's a very important part of managing turf for playability and sustainability.
And so to get it out, how do you go about doing that? Let's say your career at Garden City and Atlantic has all been bent grass, which folks can relate to in terms of the greens. First time I ever saw bent grass fairways in my life was up in the North Carolina mountains, and I was just terrified to take a divot. I was playing Grandfather Mountain, and their fairways were better than any green I'd ever seen in my life. But how do you go about getting it out?
Just to get back to Jimmy, he's 100% right in growing the grass, and as you as a player knows, the firmer the surface you can get to, the better, less smaller the divots, the better it bounces. You can't achieve any of that if you start off with thatch. You can't go to a golf course and say, just turn the water off, because it'll be a disaster. But how to get it out, there's many ways to get it out. I found over the career, for me, aerification was the best. The more I could aerify the golf course, which is pulling a plug up, dragging it back in, just eliminating it. Then once I got the thatch that was manageable, I would go into more deep verticutting, deep dethatching like that. And then eventually I got into top dressing fairways, which we do on greens, and I was top dressing fairways. Looking back on my career, I don't know if the top dressing of the fairways was as important as the aerification and the dethatching. And then I think if you add all that together and you get yourself a good playing surface, it's managing the fertilizer. Because if we go out and over-fertilize a golf course, you're just producing thatch, what you just brought up. So we have to regulate that fertilizer very, very lean to make it playable. And the best compliment you're going to get is if a Charlie Reimer comes to your place and says, this is what I want to play on, then you know you've achieved what you're trying to get.
When the ball hits the ground on a well-prepared golf course, obviously taken out, if somebody gets 10 inches of rain in 3 days, there's not much you can do with that. But normal rain, just the sound of a ball hitting a green, the sound of a ball, you can hear it landing in the fairway and bounding forward, is something that quite honestly, I don't think we see enough of in the U.S. And I think a lot of golfers here don't understand that the game is meant to be played along the ground, and because we have courses that are so green here, the ball just doesn't release out. And to me, the game is a lot less fun and you use a lot less imagination. And there's a lot of really cool features on golf courses that you can't use because everything just hits and splats. It's something that's been really frustrating for me to see over the years. Especially go to a golf course and they say, "Oh, we're old style. We play link style golf," and then you go out and every fairway, boom, it just splats. But I wanted to get to this, Jim. I think the impression among a lot of folks that play golf and don't otherwise that chemical applications on golf courses can be really bad for the environment. And I think in many cases that's not really true. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we've come a long way in the industry. And, real quick before I touch on that, I wanted to mention, as superintendents, we're trying to get as little growth as we possibly can of the turf to maintain the playing conditions like you talked to. It's really not, it's more of, how little can we get this grass to grow and still mow it and still hold up to the traffic and provide a good surface. But golf courses are good stewards of the environment, and pesticides, fertilizer, all these things are expensive, and we're trying to get by as efficiently as possible. Yep. And a lot of the new stuff is what we call site-specific. It's not like your old style pesticides or DDTs where you drop a bomb out there and everything in the soil gets killed. It's very site-specific, and we're very careful because obviously a lot of people love the natural part of golf. They love the wildlife. They love the just being with nature. And I think we do everything in our power to encourage that. And environmental stewardship and responsibility is at the forefront of everyone's mind.
And wildlife management on golf courses is a big issue as well. Atlantic, I've only been there a couple of times with you, but you got to be covered up in wildlife in the summertime, and that's got to be something the members like.
Yeah, we do. It was unique. We had 68 acres of natural grasslands at Atlantic. So you had these big fields of fine fescue, little blue stem, big blue stem. Plus we were surrounded by acreage. So we always had deer and fox, coyotes, and everything was out there. So it was good like that. Just to touch base on that firmness real quick, what he said about the flyer lies, all the stuff we try to do on a fairway and the rough, which I believe in a nice tight rough for that flyer lie, it all falls apart if the greens can't react the way you want them to react. So if you could set up where you could hit that right shot in the fairway and react to that green, but you're in the little rough with a flyer, you can't stop it. It really makes the difference in things. So I'd like to just say that I think everything's important from the tee, the fairway, and the green. How many times do you walk on a golf course and you stand on that tee and you say, I know right away this superintendent's good because it's a firm tee, it's a good tee. The golf course is going to be there. It's that whole presentation all the way through. Sorry for jumping.
Oh, you do whatever, you do wherever you want to go with this show. I mean, you didn't get dressed up or anything.
I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
Because he surprised us.
So Jim, you play golf. Bob tries to play golf. He's actually a lot better than I give him credit for. And I don't really want to, I'm not asking this question at you guys to throw any superintendents under the boat, but how important do you think it is for superintendents to play, to get out and spend time playing with not just maybe a couple of their buddies, but get out and play with either the members or the customers, whatever golf course they have. How important do you think it is for them to get out and play?
I think it's extremely important. You just you get in a habit of riding around the course when you're working, and you don't look at things in the same way. When you're actually playing, you're actually seeing it from the golfer's perspective, and it's ultimately a lot of us superintendents get caught up in grass and irrigation and this and that, but it is about golf, and you can't lose sight of that. And there have been superintendents over the years that have been very successful that didn't play golf, but you have to have a lot of other intangibles if you're not going to play. And I think playing and seeing things through the player's eyes is crucial.
It's got to be hard though. Like I got a good buddy who's a preacher in Atlanta, and he claims to be the top Methodist preacher in all of Atlanta. They have a ranking system preachers do to figure out who's like the top in the state, sort of like you Golf Magazine Raider. Yeah. The preachers that have the most members at Augusta National, they figure they're high. He said he's got 7 in his church, so he's number 1 preacher in in Atlanta or in the state of Georgia. But when I take him out places, he loves golf, and it's a lot of fun to not tell people that you got a preacher with you, because he wants to see what the real world is like, And it's got to be the same thing for you guys. When you go to play golf, you don't want the people. If you go somewhere else, you don't want them to know you're a superintendent, because then you got an earful all day long, right? Especially if it's a course that if they don't know you and it's a member or a customer, that would be sort of tough, I would think, to play golf with them. You'd rather almost do it anonymously, right?
Well, I'll tell you my experience. And when I was superintendent for 43 years, and and I joined a club down the block that was a private club called Southampton Golf Club, which was a wonderful Seth Rayner golf course. I think Jimmy came to visit me. We played it. And I got perspective of what members think. So when I would go to that club and play with the members, I heard what members, and I could bring that back to Atlantic and say, okay, if you just surround yourself with superintendents, sometimes you're all just complaining about the same thing.
Wait, superintendents complain?
Oh, yeah.
No. Mostly about us PGA pros, I bet.
Well, it's up there. It's not the top three. So we can get to the top three. But the thing is, so I had that perspective. Also, when I'd go back and play with our membership, it's always good for the superintendent to play with the membership, because then it's them and three guys, and hopefully most times the members aren't going to talk about the turf, but you can see what they look at. For example, what bothers people the most on the golf course? Is it the bad? Is it the bunkering? Is it the rough? So I think it's super, super important for the golf course superintendent to play his own golf course, to play other golf courses to see it, and to know the game of golf. I don't know. I know there has been successful guys like that, but I think they would even be more successful if they played.
I agree.
What kind of things have you learned from getting out and playing at your club heritage?
Recently, I can think of a couple times where I played, and for example, we have a par 3, number 13 on the backside. It's over water, and the main tee that most people play, there was some sawgrass growing up, and it was 2 feet right past the tee, 2 feet high, and I hit my ball into that sawgrass, Charlie.
Yeah, right off the tee.
Right off the tee, and the next day it got trimmed down. So, but I do think it's important to play other golf courses, and superintendents have a good relationship with each other, and it's the type of business where you lean on your peers. Bob's been a mentor to me and had helped me a lot over the years. And early on when I was at Caledonia, we hit it off right away playing golf and talking golf. And it's just a good thing to network with your neighbor superintendents. And we've all got the same problems, and we help each other and try to do anything we can to further the business, especially here in Myrtle Beach, because we're all, we all want everybody to be as good as they possibly can, Charlie.
When y'all get together, I know I had lunch the other day with a group of superintendents, and y'all made me buy lunch. You said, listen, you're the only PGA guy here, so you're going to buy.
We've never seen
lunch.
A golf pro put his hand in his pocket before, so everybody was taking pictures.
Right, it's the first time I bought lunch in a long time. But typically when y'all get together, is it socially? You get together to play golf? Do you have I know there's a Golf Course Superintendents Association. I assume there's a Myrtle Beach chapter. Is that when you try to get together?
Yes. Yeah, the local chapter is the Palmettos Golf Course Superintendents Association, which is our local association underneath the Carolinas Golf Course Superintendents Association. And a lot of times we'll do full day events where we might have some education in the morning, and then play golf in the afternoon, and have fellowship and just get together and talk, Charlie.
Yeah, and I know there's an exchange of ideas, best practices, that sort of stuff. And to this area, we're obviously warm season grasses, and one of the debates that always comes up is, do you overseed, do you not overseed, do you use one of the green dyes and make it where it's pretty, but that grass isn't growing in the winter time, but maybe one of the issues that comes up here that challenges, in particular, superintendents in the Myrtle Beach area the most. What would that be? What would one of the bigger issues be? Toughest thing that you deal with that we deal with as a market year in and year out.
I'd say not just here as in our market, but nationwide weather. Obviously, you can't control that, and it's constantly going to throw you curveballs, and that's part of being a superintendent is learning how to deal with those. The longer you do it, the more you understand that you can't control it and you just deal with it. But other than that, here in Myrtle Beach, some golf courses have heavy amounts of play. I know that can be challenging, wear and tear. You know, it's great with what's happening now with more people getting in the game, Charlie. I can tell you that a big topic right now is the single cart usage. You know, that's a big thing that we're all communing on and talking about and trying to develop ideas how to deal with that.
Well, especially at times of year when the grass isn't growing.
It's critical right now.
Yeah.
And I know here in Myrtle Beach, some facilities are dealing with it more than others. And I know for the company that I work for, we've had some symposiums and get-togethers about how to deal with it. And I had to submit a plan to my bosses and superiors about what our traffic mitigation plan is to deal with that, it's great that more people are playing, but the single carts is definitely, it's not doubling our wear, but it's definitely increasing it.
Yeah, so. And everybody agrees. If you're someone who rides in a golf cart and come into a course and hear cart path only, I mean, that's like end of the world for a lot of folks. But so what are some of the solutions? I know that's tough. I mean, I see different things being tried, you know, where it's like scatter, get on the course here, get on the course there, try and move it around. Is there anything that you see on the horizon, innovative, that might help? Some newer, lighter vehicles, different tires, that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think in the short term, you know, I think a lot of us are looking at increasing fertilization. Kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier. We need to increase fertilization because we have more wear, and a lot of courses probably had to trim some of their budgets to deal with the pandemic, and maybe didn't fertilize as much in 2020 as they normally would. So I know I'm looking to bump that up a little bit. You know, some of the things I've heard people talking about doing is using like a 2-cart system, which basically means you can take 4 carts and a foursome. Everybody have their own cart, but only 2 carts are allowed on any given fairway at any time.
Yeah.
And it's up to the group to decide, you know, I don't care how you do it, but you guys just decide if we come, you know, just make sure there's only 2 carts out there. I've heard that being used. A lot of Myrtle Beach golf courses are really good at traffic control. I know at Heritage and coming up at Caledonia, both busy facilities, you know, we kind of use a gate system where we change the entrances and exits. And if you keep up with that on a regular basis, it does a good job of spreading out the wear.
You just need the golfers to understand what's going on and help us all make the golf course as good as they can be for everybody. I know some places will go to the GPS. Every time Bob and I ride together, we get putting GPS time out with the beep, beep, beep.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
we have to back out of there. But I know people hate hearing about aerification. You guys have talked about why you have aerification. They hate cart path only, but the fact of the matter is you got to have cart path only certain times of the year, no matter what part of the country you're in. Bob, I want to ask you, the folks that don't know Bob, he's a little bit of a maverick and isn't afraid to break from the pack. And one of the cool things that he's got the best front porch in all of Myrtle Beach. And I may or may not have spent a few evenings out there listening to some Riley Green playing country music and maybe drinking a nice wine. But and love staying late at night. You got to come up for one of those evenings, Jim. But
you have to stay over though.
But
that's fine.
Yeah, Uber back.
Yeah.
But one of the things stories that I appreciated hearing from you was you were the first superintendent, maybe in the country, to use triplex mowers, which used to be used for greens. Now most places use the push mowers. But you were one of the first superintendents to go with triplex mowers on the fairways. Tell me that story.
I wasn't one of the first, but I'll tell you how I came up with it. Went to the Walker Cup at Pine Valley, I think, maybe 84. I forget the exact. You probably know the year better than I do. So 4 superintendents, we all went to the Walker Cup for the day. And I'm walking down these fairways, and
they let y'all in?
Yeah, we snuck in. Yeah, see, it's a bad neighborhood around Pine Valley, so you can get through the gate.
Okay.
So I get on, and we're walking down, and it just shows about different superintendents. 4 of us are walking down, and these are the best fairways I've ever seen in my life. I was like blown away. So I said, we got to go see the superintendent. And at the time, it was a guy named Dick Bader, which is a very famous superintendent now. He's been every golf course, Marion, Oak Hill, and he was at the Pine Valley. So I walk in, I say, hey, Dick, Bob Ranum, Garden City Golf Club. I said, these are the best fairways I've ever seen in my life. What do you do? And he didn't even look up. He just pointed to double doors. And if you see maintenance buildings, they all have the double doors. And he just went like this, put his head down. I walked through these doors, and there was 25 triplex fairway mowers. I'm like, wow. So I'm thinking, you can't cut greens with 25 triplex fans on it. So I go back, I said, Dick. And he goes, I pick up clippings. I cut all my fairways with these. And I pick up the clippings or I move the clippings. Cuts down on my fertilizer, cuts down putting the extra water down, lets the bent grass get aggressive and move into the Poana areas, which we're all trying to eliminate. So we'll get back in the car, and two of us said, damn, when we get back, we're going to figure out a way to do this on Long Island. And the other two said, you'll ruin the game if you, somebody's beeping me, I'm sorry. You'll ruin the game if you do this to your fairways. So we went back, I started it, Garden City Golf Club, changed my fairways in 1 year. The other superintendent was at a course called Plandome. The other two wouldn't do it. They fought it for years, but eventually every superintendent on Long Island was doing it.
And that's why nobody likes him.
That's why nobody likes me. There's other reasons, but that's one of them. But, you asked me, I bring up challenges for the Northeast. The big challenge we always have in the Northeast is things called nematodes. So anything that goes wrong with my golf course at Atlantic, I said, it's nematodes. I can't control these little things. I figured I would say it before he did.
Every superintendent I've ever been around, if you think about it, folks, there's this creature that's microscopic, right? And it eats grass. It destroys grass. And apparently there's no treatment for it. And every time a superintendent can't grow grass because they've been out fishing too much and not out cutting the grass, they blame it on this poor little creature that's mythical and doesn't even exist.
It works, though.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to go.
I've heard you guys explaining it to the ball. Oh, we've got nematodes in there. What's that? Well, it's this thing you can't see and it eats grass. Really?
Yeah.
Really? A nematode?
Yeah, it's terrible. That's the biggest challenge we have. Little buggers.
Yeah, they're the best things ever happened to superintendents and nematodes.
And they'll go on for generations.
Bob doesn't know anything about grain on Bermuda grass, so I'm going to talk to you about this, Jim. For our folks that are listening that maybe play on bent grass and never really dealt with grain that much, a lot of folks just don't understand the whole concept of grain. So just like I asked you about thatch, grain on Bermuda grass, one-on-one, what is it? And it's unlike nematodes, it actually exists.
It does exist, and it is just the way the grass lays over. A lot of times the grass wants to grow towards the setting sun. Sometimes it wants to grow with whatever way the water flows off, and a lot of times on Bermuda grass greens, it can be just kind of have a crazy mind of its own, Charlie, and just go all different directions. And you can... As you play on Bermuda grass greens more and more, you can see the different shades. If it's lighter, it's going, you're going with the grain. If it's darker, it's coming into you. It's basically the same concept as the light and dark stripes in the fairways that you see with the mowers. But it's something that has to be accounted for. It's variable from golf course to golf course. Some golf courses, grain is more influential than others. Some golf courses spend a lot of money to try to eliminate it and minimize it, and others just roll with it.
Yeah. So let's get into that a little bit. Over the years, I grew up in South Carolina, just south of Charlotte, and I was in an area where we were maybe 95% bent, 5% Bermuda. And now it's flip-flop because the Bermudas are just so much better. And to me, these new Bermuda grasses, the ultra tiff dwarfs, you got Champion, Mini Verde. I know there's a ton of other varieties around. Those two seem to be the most popular in the Southeast. But these grasses, when I look at them, are just so much better than what I ever thought Bermuda could possibly be. From my standpoint, it's changed the industry. What are your thoughts on these new grasses?
It has changed it, and they are revolutionary compared to the old Tiff Dwarf and the 328s and the older varieties. They can be mown lower. They have a dwarfer leaf texture. The leaves are smaller. The nodes are closer together, which means that's where the leaves come out of the stems. They can be managed in certain ways to increase ball roll and smoothness, and it has been a revolution. And a lot of places that were bent grass in the South have gone to these ultra dwarf Bermudas just because it's not so much that they're cheaper to maintain. when they first came out, that's what people would say. You don't have to hand water them in the summertime.
Cheaper comparing them to bent grass.
To bent grass, right.
Yeah.
We've kind of come back on that a little bit. It's more of a funds are reallocated to other areas, but the superintendents and the crews definitely have a much better quality of life in the summertime.
Yeah. I always felt bad for superintendents in the summertime in the South trying to keep bent grass alive, especially these hot, humid nights, and that's, I always thought that was really tough. So you're a warm season grass.
Yep.
Your career's been here. You specialize in that, Bob. You're cool season. And I've seen that the line creep farther and farther north, and even to me, when I start looking, I wonder, like in the Washington, D.C. area, I'm thinking about congressional, they've got a lot of big tournaments coming. I don't know how well they could handle, Bermuda could handle what gets thrown that way in the wintertime. But where do you think that line is going to finally get to on, hey, if you're north of here, you got to have bent. If you're south of here, you got to have Bermuda.
It's hard to say. It is moving north. The use of covers has really brought the Bermudas farther north. And in many ways, these ultra-dwarf Bermudas, you can have them from South Florida all the way up into Kentucky, into, Washington, D.C. area, Maryland, Virginia, Kentucky. Cold is definitely going to be your limiting factor. Yeah. You see the same thing with athletic fields, too. A lot of these NFL stadiums and college stadiums, the Bermuda grass has moved farther north, and, they can do some pretty wild things, too, with blankets, and, they have those heaters and the artificial lights, and a lot of that stuff was started over in Europe on soccer pitches, and it's moving farther north. And in some ways, when you have the coldness at night in the wintertime is going to be your limiting factor, but in many ways, your ultra-dwarf Bermuda greens, the farther north you have them, the better quality you can have.
Yeah.
Because, again, they don't grow very much in those climates, whereas in South Florida, when you have a 12-month growing season, this is kind of going back to the thatch, when you take a 5-month growing season compared to a 12-month, you have double the amount of growth in the thatch, and there's less aerification, less cultivation, just less stuff that us as golfers don't like to deal with when we're playing.
Yeah, turf is interesting because there's clearly a bunch of research going on all across the world, by my estimation. A lot of it happens here in the Southeast, and a lot of the grasses that are innovative have been developed in the Southeast. It's going to be interesting to see where it ultimately gets to. I'm hearing of some new varieties of zoysia grass, which I really love, being used as putting surfaces in certain areas, and it's starting to get finer and finer. So definitely something that's fun to follow if you're like us and you're a turf geek.
It's interesting you talk about what Washington D.C. area now. Congressional just did their whole golf course over by Andrew Green, and I went up there to visit, and it's a bent grass surface because it's going to have a tournament. But they did the heating and cooling system underneath through the stress of the summer to help the bent grass survive. But the bent grass is great in the spring and fall. So they chose in the Washington area still to stay with bent grasses. But they turned around, even as far north as I did, I had a Bermuda practice tee because the recovery in the summer when I had most of my players.
I had no idea you had Bermuda practice tee.
Yeah.
Long Island, yeah.
I
no wonder everybody thinks you're crazy.
And what was nice about it was I used to save that tee area for when we really got into the play in July and August when it was growing the best. I would fill divots with ryegrass, but the Bermuda just creeped so much better than my bent grass tee, which got destroyed. So there is applications for it. I don't think you'll ever see a high-end course in Virginia North not staying with bent grass because it's a great playing surface, but there is other applications for that.
How did you keep that tee alive in the winter?
Cover
Bob? You would cover it?
Cover it for the whole winter.
And that would get it through?
Beautiful. It was a great tee. It was now we just redid our whole range over, and when we did it, the members chose. Well, the golf pro complained about the tee because
hey, leave us alone.
because it was when we first put the Bermuda down. It's hard to hit. Not hard to hit all of them. I found it nice, but he complained about hitting hard. But then once he got used to it, he was fine, and then he saw the benefits. But when we did the tee over, they made a decision because I was leaving then. The next superintendent made a decision to do a shortcut bluegrass on the tee, which I didn't think really felt part of the golf course. It was a bent grass golf course, and the Bermuda fit in really well with that. But they chose a shortcut blue on their practice tee.
Now most superintendents, after having an amazing career like you've had, Bob, you're going to just ride off into the sunset, maybe never go look at a golf course again. But you love golf as much as anybody I've ever seen. And your retirement, you're writing for Golf Magazine, you're doing some podcasts for Golf Magazine, you're going and looking at all different golf courses. Tell me about how you decided to do that and what it is that you're doing for Golf Magazine.
Well, when I recommend this to any superintendent, I always had a plan that I would retire at 66, 67 years old. So I always had that plan of coming to watch this whole plantation. So I bought years ago. I had my plan. So when I was getting ready to retire, a good friend of mine is Rand Morissette, who took over the top 100 for Golf Magazine. So he called me and we had a chat, and I didn't want to join. I wanted to see as many golf courses as I could possibly see architecturally, but I didn't want to just be one of these Golf Digest guys that have 2,000 raters or a Golf Week that has all these raters. And he assured me that we were going to start out with 60 raters worldwide, and in doing that worldwide, we would, and then we would communicate a lot better. Now we're at 90. So I felt like I could make a big difference. So if I went to see a golf course. So he gave me the opportunity. So when I retired, I went right into that. The first year of retirement, I got to see 40 golf courses from 9 states. So I did 9 states, 40 golf courses. And I basically traveled as much as I could just to see the different architecture, we don't have a lot of Donald Ross golf courses like you do down here in the New York area. We had Siwanoy. But now when I went up to the New England area, I got to see tons of Donald Ross. I got to see all these. So I'm getting to see this. Next year, I plan on visiting at least 40 again. I go out in the fall to California. I'm doing all of California for a month. Then I'm doing the Midwest. I want to do Texas to Chicago. And then the year after that, I'm going to Europe. And I'm going to do Scotland and Ireland and England for a month, 6 weeks. So
he loves it, doesn't he, Jim? The good news for you and I, Jim, he's going to be out of town a lot. And I've been talking about his front porch at Wachasaw Plantation. We're going to be on your front porch.
Yeah, but let's stop right there.
Where's Bob? Where's Bob?
Charlie has what he calls the show every night. His house overlooks the Intercoastal, the Waccamaw River. And the sunset there is spectacular. So would you rather sit on someone's porch looking at a parking lot? Or would you rather sit over by Charlie's? He just wants everybody to come to my house for the free wine. Yeah.
I tell you what, both spots are a lot of fun to hang out. And we appreciate you hanging out with us. This has been Balls in the Hair with your friendly neighborhood host, Charlie Reimer, Jim Huntoon, the superintendent at Heritage, which is Pawleys Island, South Carolina, on the south end of Myrtle Beach. I tell everybody, they ask me, they say, what's a hidden gem? What's a hidden gem? You got to go to Heritage when you come down to Myrtle Beach, and you're going to appreciate that golf course and the condition it's in. And Bob Ranum, the Long Island legend, now a retired superintendent who is doing a lot of work for Golf Magazine, traveling the world. Gentlemen, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your friendship. And the conversation that we've had here today is one we probably have about 2 or 3 days a week. So if you're in this area, look us up. We'll sit down and be happy to talk to you.
We're having a cocktail.
Right. We're not listening to you talk. We're talking to you. Just remember that. If you sit down with us, we almost got in a big fight driving up here. We were all talking at once and nobody listened. But guys, thank you very much. Appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you, Charlie.
You got it, Jim. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's hope that I can look and see if I have a grandson.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully the grandbaby's coming due anytime now. Hopefully you'll get a great text as we finish up this show. So, folks, join us next time right here on Balls in the Air, and make sure that you check us out wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you have a chance to like us, go ahead and like us, because we like it when you like us. Thank you.